Welcome to Godless and Grounded. Since the beginning of human thought, we have been haunted by one question that never seems to rest. What happens when we die? This question has shaped civilizations, religions, philosophies, and even wars. It has written poetry, carved temples, and built empires. And at the center of it all lies one fragile yet persistent belief: the soul. The idea that there is something inside us that lives beyond our body. Something invisible, untouchable, eternal. Something that survives death. Every culture on Earth, in one way or another, has created its own version of this invisible essence. The Egyptians believed in the Ka and Ba. The Greeks spoke of the psyche. Hindus and Buddhists imagined Atman and reincarnation. Christians and Muslims turned it into heaven and hell. But when you strip away the languages and rituals, it is the same comforting illusion repeating itself through history: the human refusal to accept the finality of death. Why do we need the soul so badly? Because humans are the only species aware of their mortality. A cat does not think about its afterlife. A bird does not pray for its eternal spirit. But we do. We plan, hope, and fear our own ending. Our brains evolved enough to understand that one day, this awareness will stop. And that realization terrifies us. So we built stories. We told ourselves that death is not the end, only a doorway. That something of us will continue, pure, untouched, unbroken. That is the seed of the soul. The first people to invent the idea were not philosophers or priests. They were ordinary humans, staring at the lifeless bodies of their loved ones, unable to accept what they saw. When someone died, they looked peaceful, almost asleep. So early humans assumed that maybe their body stopped working, but their inner self, their thoughts, their voice, their presence, had simply gone somewhere else. The birth of the soul was not wisdom, it was grief mixed with imagination. And from that imagination, religion was born. Once people began believing in invisible spirits, it became easy to believe in gods, demons, angels, and heavens. The soul was the foundation that gave supernatural thinking its structure. If there is something inside you that can live forever, then priests can claim to control its destiny. They can offer salvation, forgiveness, and eternal life. And that gave religion its most powerful marketing tool: fear of losing your soul. Throughout history, the soul has been used as a leash. The church told people that their bodies were temporary but their souls eternal. That meant every sin, every thought, every doubt could follow you forever. It made people obedient, afraid to question, and willing to suffer in this life for promises in the next. The same pattern appears in almost every faith. Control the idea of the soul, and you control the people. But the problem is simple. There is no evidence that a soul exists. Not a single shred of scientific proof has ever shown that consciousness survives the death of the brain. When the brain is injured, memory disappears. When neurons stop firing, personality fades. Every emotion, dream, and identity we have can be linked to biological activity. If the soul were separate, then these things would not vanish with brain damage, but they do. Your sense of self lives entirely in your neurons, not in a magical invisible essence. Think about a simple example. When someone gets Alzheimer's disease, their personality changes. They forget names, lose empathy, sometimes even become aggressive. If a soul exists, how does it forget its own life while still being inside the same body? How can an eternal soul be confused about who it is? The answer is clear. Because what we call the soul is nothing more than the brain doing its job. When you look at how humans evolved, the illusion becomes even more obvious. Our brains developed over millions of years. Consciousness is not something added from outside. It is an emergent property of complexity. Just as fire appears when you rub sticks, consciousness appears when enough neurons interact. It feels deep and mysterious because we experience it from the inside. But that does not make it divine, it just makes it personal. Some people argue that since we cannot see consciousness or measure the exact moment it begins, it must be spiritual. But that argument is the same as saying lightning must be a god's weapon because we cannot explain electricity. Mystery does not mean magic. It only means we do not understand it yet. The soul has survived not because it is true, but because it is useful. It gives people hope. It comforts the dying. It makes injustice tolerable by promising cosmic fairness. If life is unfair, heaven will fix it. If someone suffers, their soul will be rewarded. If evil wins, it will burn forever. It sounds beautiful, but it also prevents humans from taking real responsibility for their world. Because if justice is waiting after death, why fight for it here? Imagine a society that believes every injustice will be corrected after death. That society will accept slavery, oppression, and inequality far more easily. That is exactly what religion has done for centuries. It replaced real justice with spiritual patience. The illusion of the soul keeps people waiting for what they could create themselves, a better world. And yet, even when science exposes the illusion, people still cling to it. Why? Because losing the soul feels like losing yourself. It feels like saying your love for your child, your memories, your dreams, your laughter, all end with your last breath. That sounds cruel. But is it really? Think about this. You do not remember before you were born, yet you are not scared of that emptiness. You only fear what you have been taught to fear, the end. The truth is, you will not feel death. You will simply not be. It is not punishment. It is peace. The beauty of life does not come from eternity. It comes from its fragility. Flowers are beautiful because they die. Sunsets are magical because they end. Your life matters not because it will last forever, but because it will not. That is what makes every act of kindness, every moment of love, every idea shared, so meaningful. When you stop believing in the soul, you start valuing the living self even more. There is a strange irony in all this. The more people believe in eternal souls, the less they value actual lives. Wars have been fought in the name of saving souls. People have been burned alive for the sake of purity. Children have been taught to hate themselves because their souls are sinful. If you remove the illusion, what remains is raw humanity, flawed, temporary, but real. So what exactly are we? Are we just flesh and electricity? Perhaps, but that is not something to mourn. It is something to celebrate. Because this mixture of atoms and energy has learned to love, dream, create art, build science, and ask questions about its own existence. We are matter that became aware. That awareness does not need a ghost inside it. It is already miraculous enough. The story of the soul is not just a story about belief. It is a story about power, fear, and identity. Every religion that survived through history learned one basic truth. You can control people if you convince them that their invisible part belongs to you. Ancient priests understood this better than anyone. In Egypt, the pharaohs claimed to guide souls into the afterlife. In Greece, philosophers like Plato turned the soul into a symbol of reason and purity, something trapped inside the dirty prison of the body. The church later borrowed that idea and built its own empire around it. It told people that the body is sinful, the world is corrupt, and only the soul matters. That single idea made people hate their own humanity. When you believe your body is inferior to your soul, you start to see life as something to escape from, not something to cherish. That is why many religions glorify suffering. They say pain purifies the soul. They say denying the body brings you closer to God. But look around. What has that thinking given us? Misery disguised as morality. Millions of people starving, punishing, and isolating themselves, believing that self-torture makes them holy. All because they think their real self is somewhere else, trapped in this temporary shell. Even today, the same mindset continues. Some people refuse to donate organs because they believe their soul needs a complete body for resurrection. Some reject life-saving medical treatments, thinking it interferes with divine will. And some kill in the name of religion, believing they are protecting eternal souls from damnation. This is not spirituality, it is fear in disguise. Science, on the other hand, tells a different story. It does not say you are a soul inside a body. It says you are the body. You are your brain, your chemistry, your biology. That might sound mechanical, but it is far more wondrous than any myth. Because your mind is not something separate from matter. It is what matter does when it thinks. Let us look at what we know. Every thought you have can be traced to brain activity. MRI scans can now show patterns that reveal what a person is thinking about. Electrical stimulation of the brain can make people feel emotions, hear voices, even see visions. If a soul were responsible for those experiences, why would a small electric pulse change them so easily? There have been countless cases where brain injuries completely changed who someone was. A gentle person becomes violent. A faithful person becomes an atheist. A shy person turns bold. If the soul stays constant, why does personality shift when the brain changes? Because there is no soul behind it. The brain itself is the person. Some people point to near-death experiences as proof of the soul, but when studied carefully, those experiences are simply the result of oxygen deprivation and chemical reactions in a dying brain. The tunnel of light, the sense of floating, the visions, all can be replicated in labs using carbon dioxide or certain drugs. The brain, when near death, floods itself with chemicals that create powerful illusions. People mistake those for proof of the afterlife because they feel so real. But feeling real is not the same as being real. If a soul truly left the body, then during surgery or brain death, there would be measurable changes. Scientists have searched for decades. They have measured weight loss at death, electromagnetic fields, anything that could show something leaving. The result every time is the same: nothing. The body simply stops functioning. Yet the myth continues because it gives us emotional comfort. The soul promises reunion with loved ones. It promises that the people we lose are not really gone. It promises that we will see them again. And maybe that is why humanity cannot let go. We trade truth for hope. We prefer a beautiful lie to a cold fact. But is it really cold, or is it simply honest? Let us face the truth with courage. When someone dies, their body returns to nature. The atoms that made them become air, soil, and life again. Their influence lives in memories, in the people they loved, in the changes they made. That is a far more real form of immortality. You do not need a soul to continue. You continue in the world you shaped, in the lives you touched. Think of your ancestors. You carry their genes. You speak their language. You live their dreams. They are not floating ghosts. They are inside you, not spiritually, but biologically. You are their continuation. That is real eternity, matter and life passing forward endlessly through time. If people understood this, the world would become more compassionate. Because when you realize there is no afterlife, you stop waiting for cosmic justice and start building justice here. You stop living for heaven and start caring for earth. You stop obeying out of fear and start acting out of empathy. Without the illusion of the soul, morality becomes honest. You do good because it helps others, not because you want divine rewards. You avoid harm because you understand pain, not because you fear punishment. That is real ethics. Kindness without bargaining. Some fear that without belief in the soul, life becomes meaningless. But that is only true if you think meaning must be given by someone else. Meaning is not handed from above, it is created from within. A musician finds meaning in sound. A parent finds meaning in love. A scientist finds meaning in discovery. A teacher finds meaning in growth. You create meaning by living it. The illusion of the soul tries to make life about what comes next. The truth of reality makes life about what is now. This moment, your breath, your thoughts, your heartbeat. This is all there is, and it is enough. You are the universe experiencing itself briefly as you. When you die, you do not go anywhere. You simply dissolve back into the same universe that created you. Your atoms do not vanish. They become clouds, trees, and stars again. That is not sad. It is beautiful. You are part of an eternal cycle of transformation. Not a trapped soul waiting for escape, but living matter returning home. The irony is that by giving up the illusion of the soul, you find a deeper kind of peace. Because then you realize you never needed eternity to make life valuable. You only needed awareness to appreciate it. You stop fearing death, because you understand that what ends was never separate from what continues. The soul is humanity's oldest delusion because it was born from fear. Fear of death, fear of loss, fear of meaninglessness. But fear can be replaced with understanding. Knowledge is not the enemy of wonder. It is the path to real awe. When you look at a brain scan, or a star forming, or a cell dividing, you are witnessing miracles. Not from gods, but from nature itself. So maybe the truth is this. You never had a soul. You were never meant to have one. You are something greater. A temporary consciousness made from stardust, aware of its own impermanence, capable of love and reason. You do not need eternal life to be eternal. The fact that the universe once arranged itself in a way that allowed you to exist is enough. You have already been part of eternity, just by being here. And maybe that is all the immortality you will ever need.